Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own.
I was born at home on West Exchange Street.
Them that's not shall lose. So the
My father's name was Louis Moritz. My mother's name was Agnes Moritz. Her maiden name was Miller.
Papa may have, but God bless the child.
They were both born in Akron, yes. They were born, I would say, maybe about, not more than 8 blocks away between them. She was born by Akron U, and he was born over off of Grant Street. And they met in Akron. They were married in Akron. But they never met until after they were old enough to go to work. And they worked at the Star Rubber Company. She was a telephone operator, and he was an inventor. He had a 3rd floor room, a whole 3rd floor with a cot. And he laid up there and invented things. He never made any money on the inventions because they all belonged to the rubber company. I have one sister. She's a little bit younger. In fact, tomorrow will be her 83rd birthday. She was born on the 18th, I was born on the 19th.
Fools rush in where angels fear to tread.
I met him in a little town in Pennsylvania where he lived, Dunlow, Pennsylvania. I had went down there for the weekend with 2 girlfriends, that they were from there. And we went out that night, and I met him that night. Well, they called it the Bucket of Blood. That was the slang name for it. But it was a great big flat building, and it had a great big dance hall and a bar in the front when you came in the front door. And on Saturday nights, everybody in the town went down there. The mothers, the fathers, the grandparents, all the little kids. In between dances and between the music, the kids would get out there and slide back and forth, and then finally the grandparents would gather them all together and take them home, and the parents and the rest of the people would all sit and enjoy themselves. I guess that was a thing to do in those small towns in those days. We were sitting all at a table there, and this bunch of fellas came in, and he had just came back from Baltimore. He had got his draft notice, so he came home to stay with his mother for a couple of days. And they were all sitting at the table behind us, and they hollered over, how would you girls like to go to, I can't think of the name, it was another little bar like that. They had dancing there too. And so the girl says, oh, let's go. So we went with them, and I just kind of sat with him that night, and he asked if he could take me the next day up to the fire tower. I didn't know what a fire tower was. It's up one of them tall towers on a mountain, you know. So the next day after church, why, he came and picked me up, and we went up to the fire tower, and he takes me up these 100 and some steps up to the top. It was something to see. And so then he took me home and asked if he could take us to the bus station the next day to take us home. And I said, yeah, pick us up. So he did. When I went to come home, we get on the bus, he says, wait a minute, I want to tell you something. He says, you know, he says, sitting up there on that step in that tower, he says, I think I fell in love with you. He never changed his mind. And he had a brother that lived in Akron. And that was when, always on his spare time, anytime he could get a chance, he'd come visit his brother. His mother said she never seen two brothers get together so often as they did after he met me. Then he was drafted, then he went in the Army. He was a cook. He had his own mess hall in the Philippines, where after the war was, the war had ended, and all the big dignitaries, the vice president and the senators, and they all went over to see what it was like, because it was all free for them to travel. It didn't cost them anything. And that was all he did that was the only mess hall he had, a great big mess hall, just special for the visiting people that came into town. And he got to know the Philippine people quite well. And he was there about 2 or 3 years anyhow that he had that. I got my discharge in December. And he got his discharge and he stopped and seen his mother, and then he came to see his brother. And while he was here, he came out to see me. And he had written to me and asked me to marry him when we were in the service. And I sent back yes on one piece of paper, just one big yes. And he says, how about if we go down Friday, we go down, and he says, I buy you an engagement ring because it's my birthday. And I says, oh, that would be a nice day to get it because that's my birthday too. And we didn't know that we both had the same, only he was 4 years older than I was. Before I went into the Army, I got a job. Jobs were pretty scarce, during the Depression. And I don't know, he was 18, 19 years old. And my girlfriend and I went out to Summer Beach and we got a job selling tickets. She sold tickets on the whip, and I can't think of the damn thing it was when they got in a car and the car went like this in circles. I don't know what was that. Anyhow, that was our first job. The dance hall and the skating rink, they were great big buildings, about a block long. They were big buildings, both of them. They were on the lake, one here and then one here. And one was a dance hall and the other was a skating rink. And they used to get big time bands here, out there. And Jimmy Dorsey, he was there that night. After we closed up, we used to go over to the dance hall, because the dance hall always lasted about an hour longer than the rides always closed an hour early. And so then after the dance was over, we all went up to the bandstand, and of course the guys that worked out there, they got to talking to this guy and that guy, and this one says something about, what are you doing? He says, John says, oh, he says, I run the merry-go-round. And he said, you do? He said, is it running now? And John said, no, but I can turn it on. Okay, how you guys? And we took the whole band and Jimmy Dorsey on the merry-go-round. And we all got on it. And we're going around, and the music's loud, it's going bum 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 bum, bum bum. And John kept saying, I hope the neighbors don't report us. I hope the neighbors don't report us. And so finally we closed down, and so then we said, well, we had to go. We were going down, and he says, how do you call for a cab? And John says, oh, he says, we don't use cabs, we take, he says, to go downtown. And John says, we take streetcars, because they used to have a streetcar. It used to run out to Summit Beach. And they said, you got a streetcar? We said, yeah, they still, if we hurry, we can still get that last streetcar. So we took the whole band. They loaded all their stuff into the vans that they had there. And then we run up the hill. And somebody went up and held the streetcar, told them not to pull out until we got there. And we took the whole band downtown. And we all got up and we went to Stone's. And Stone's was on Main Street. And they had a great big long bar, and then behind the bar they had the small nightclub with a dance hall and tables and stuff, you know. And we took them there. And a couple of guys got up, they got to talking to some of the musicians there, and they yeah, sure, and they joined in. And we didn't leave that place until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We had a regular big party, you know, and he kept saying, I got to tell my brother to come play here.